How 54 billion rands was stolen from Transnet. The full state capture story in the heart of South Africa's logistics and transport system stands Transnet, a massive state-owned company that manages the country's freight rail, ports, and pipelines. But, behind the scenes, Transnet became a central player in one of South Africa's biggest corruption scandals, part of the broader web of state capture that shook the nation. This is the story of how billions were stolen, who was involved, and where the case stands now. Let's begin at the start. In the early 2010s, Transnet launched a 54 billion rand locomotive procurement project. The goal? To modernize the country's rail fleet and infrastructure. But instead of being a milestone in development, it became a doorway to looting on a massive scale. At the center of it all were four senior executives: Molefe, Siyabonga Gama, Anoj Singh, and Thamsanqa Jiyane. These men, who once ran Transnet, now face 32 serious charges, including corruption, fraud, and violating financial management laws. But how exactly did they steal the money? The scheme worked through inflated contracts, manipulated procurement processes, and a network of politically connected middlemen. For example, the original cost of the locomotive deal was around 38 billion rand. But through last-minute changes and price escalations, often without explanation, the final cost jumped to over 54 billion. The difference, more than 15 billion rand, didn't just vanish. Investigations showed that some of it was diverted through consulting firms like Regiment's Capital and Trillion, which were closely linked to the controversial Gupta family. These firms were often paid tens or hundreds of millions of rand for doing little or no work. In one deal, Trillion received 93 million rand without any proper tender process. Internal warnings about irregularities were ignored or actively suppressed. Some whistleblowers were even pushed out of the company. In several cases, the executives rewrote procurement policies to bypass checks and speed up approvals. Invoices were approved in hours, sometimes minutes, and payments were made before contracts were finalized. These moves were not accidental. They were part of a coordinated plan to loot public money, hide the paper trail, and reward insiders. The Zondo Commission later uncovered evidence showing that Anoj Singh and others regularly met with Gupta-linked businesspeople to discuss upcoming contracts. Some of the proceeds were allegedly funneled into private accounts, offshore trusts, and even used to buy luxury property and cars. In June 2025, the so-called Big Four were arrested by South Africa's National Prosecuting Authority. They were granted bail, but the legal process is now moving forward. The Transnet scandal is not just about four individuals. It exposed the deep flaws in how state-owned companies operate. It showed how political influence, weak oversight, and corporate greed combined to defraud the country. International companies were also involved. Global consulting firm McKinsey eventually admitted its role in the scandal and agreed to pay back over 1.7 billion rand to Transnet and ESC. Now, reforms are slowly being introduced. Transnet is trying to fix its procurement systems, improve internal controls, and restore public trust. But many experts believe that true accountability will only come when those responsible are convicted, and when the stolen money is recovered. Civil society groups are calling for lifetime bans on corrupt executives and private firms involved in state capture. Some are demanding that foreign banks that moved stolen money also face penalties. This scandal raises a deeper question: how do we stop this from happening again? Until South Africa builds institutions that are independent, protected from political pressure, and transparent to the public, state capture will remain a threat. The Transnet case is a wake-up call, a lesson in what happens when power goes unchecked, and how quickly public wealth can be drained by a few. But it's also a chance for renewal, a moment to rebuild stronger systems, and to prove that justice is more than just a promise. If you want to stay informed about major corruption cases, political investigations, and stories that matter, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Your support helps us bring you more in-depth stories like this one. Thanks for watching.